Hey guys, my name is Ryan. I'm a tutor in the Econ Tutoring Center. Today I'm going to go over a problem using total cost to find marginal cost and prices to find the optimal amount that a firm will produce. Remember that language and notation may vary by professor, so always check to make sure that the notation I'm using is the same as your class. Okay, so here's an example of a firm in a market where the firm has listed a set of quantities and the total cost associated with producing that quantity. And here is the price that they can sell each of those quantities at, each unit of those quantities at. And because this price is constant over all the quantities, we can deduce that this is a firm operating in a competitive market, right? Because they are price takers, they show up at the market and they see that they can sell every unit for $5 regardless of how much they produce. The idea there is that the market is so large that when they show up, their added 4 units or whatever doesn't do anything to change the market price, right? So they are price takers because they have to show up and sell their good for $5 each, no matter how much they produce. So the goal here then is to find, if we're looking for how much this firm is going to choose to produce, they're going to maximize profit by producing where their marginal revenue equals their marginal cost. So that's our goal of this problem then, is to find their marginal cost and to find their marginal revenue and find where they're equal. So because this firm is able to sell each unit for just $5, this actually is their marginal revenue, right? So when I show up and I sell, say, watches for $5 each, I'm going to sell my first watch and I get an additional $5 of revenue for it. If I sell a second watch then, I'm going to sell that watch for $5 and I will get another $5 of revenue for it. So the idea is that every time you sell an additional unit, you're getting just this price additional revenue for it, which is in this case $5. So we can actually say that this is just the same thing as our marginal revenue. And that's only true in a competitive market, right? Because if this price were varying by how much at different levels of quantity, i.e. they were not operating in a perfectly competitive market, then we would have to actually go in and calculate these marginal revenues, right? Because this price would vary with quantity. But because this price is constant, we can just say, okay, well that is their marginal revenue because they're going to show up and sell the next unit for $5 regardless of how much they produce. And that will be their added revenue from producing another unit. So we found their marginal revenue, so that's good. So the next thing that we want to try to find is their marginal cost. Right? And we can find their marginal cost just by saying, what is the additional cost of producing the next unit? So we have their total cost, and so we can go ahead and look at the differences from adding an additional unit and deduce what their marginal cost is. Right? So first of all, their total cost when producing 0 units is their fixed cost. So in this case, their fixed cost is 10. And then it doesn't make sense to talk about marginal cost for 0 units, but for the first unit, the added cost of producing that unit is 2. Right, because we went from a total cost of 10 to a total cost of 12. So just by producing one more unit, we added a marginal cost of 2. Right, so then the marginal cost of the second unit is 3, the marginal cost of the third unit is 5, the marginal cost of the fourth unit is 7, and the marginal cost of the fifth unit is 8. Right? So in this case then we're just going to find where this marginal revenue equals our marginal cost. When you could draw this out, draw out these numbers on the graph if you'd like. You'll see a nice little picture with an intersection right here at 3 units, which is where our marginal revenue equals our marginal cost. Okay, so for the firm operating in this competitive market here at a price of 5 with total cost that looks like this, they will be maximizing their profit at a quantity of 3. So they will choose to produce 3 and they will sell each of those for 5. That will be their optimal quantity. So we just showed you guys how to find your optimal quantity by calculating our marginal cost from our total cost and deducing that in a competitive market our price is the same thing as our marginal revenue. So we said, okay, well here's where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. That's our profit maximizing quantity, and that is at 3 units in this case. Right. So another thing that's worth noting here is that a firm might not always choose to produce that, because it may be the case that their variable cost is such that the average variable cost of producing a unit is greater than the revenue that you get for each unit. So the idea there is that if I am producing units and the variable cost associated with producing each one of those units is say $10, but the revenue I receive from them is $5, I would not choose to produce any units. I would choose to produce 0 and shut down. So like I said, we have to verify, in order for the firm to not shut down, that their marginal revenue is greater than or equal to their average variable cost. Right, so first of all, like I mentioned earlier, we can see that their fixed cost is in fact $10, because that is the cost that they pay even when they produce no units. So this is a cost that they can't get out of. If they shut down and produce 0 units, they're still going to have to pay 10. So we can use that to come up with our variable cost for each unit by just subtracting out the fixed cost. Right, so their fixed cost is 10, then at 20 their variable cost, I'm going to call this variable cost here, their variable cost is just their total cost minus their fixed cost, which is 10. And I could do that for each of these units. This one would be 5 and this one would be 2. But we're just concerned with this particular profit maximizing quantity in this case. So then, like I said, we're concerned with checking if average variable cost is less than or equal to marginal revenue. And so I'm just going to divide their variable cost by the quantity to get average variable cost. Right, and in this case it's just going to be 10 divided by 3, which is approximately 3.33. Right, and that is in fact less than their marginal revenue, which is 5, and so this firm will choose to produce in the short run. In the long run, this firm would actually choose to shut down because their average total cost is less than their, is greater than their marginal revenue. So they are going to be making a loss here because the total revenue that they generate from producing these units is 15. Whereas the total cost is 20. So they'll be making a loss of $5, but that's better than they would be doing if they shut down, in which case they'd have to still pay 10. So in the short run they'll go ahead and produce because that's better for them, but in the long run they'll probably leave the industry because they are making a negative economic profit here. So I hope that clarified some of the ideas for you and maybe helped you understand why we're concerned with this average variable cost problem here, and the difference between producing in the short run and the long run. Like I said, if you have any other questions, check out our other videos or come visit us in the Econ Tutoring Center.